everyone, it's Ashley Jones. Welcome to another Marketing Showcase session. Really excited for this one as I'm going to be joined by Simon Moss from Spotler, and he's going to be talking about how the brain reacts to emails. You're going to leave this session with actual tips on what types of emails you should be using, if you're focusing on senior level people, junior levels, what works best with which type of person. It's a really interesting talk, and Spotler and the team have conducted some really useful research which you'll find out about in the next 20 minutes. So grab a coffee, grab a pen, paper, pad, take notes and sit back and enjoy, and I'll hand you over to Simon.
Hello everyone, and thanks for having me today. I'm going to talk a bit about neuromarketing, but in particular the results we got from the research we undertook with psychologist Katie Hart. But before I dive into that, it's always good to get to know a little bit about the person presenting. So my name's Simon. I'm the marketing director at Spotler. I've been in marketing for many years and always interested in testing, learning how we can improve and get more out of marketing, which is where this research stems from primarily. And just for those who don't know Spotler, we're a AI-powered marketing automation provider that focuses on B2B lead gen. So in essence, showing you who's on your website and enabling you to convert more traffic into MQLs. There's a few reasons why customers use us. One of those is you can send to purchase data, or what you would call non-opted in data for outbound lead gen. We also show you who's on your website. And if you're running paid ads, PPC or LinkedIn, we can hopefully, again, show you the companies that are on your website, but not form filling. So, on to what I want to talk to you about today, which is some research that we carried out with Katie, looking into what's going on inside people's heads when they actually receive emails. All those emails that we send as marketers day in, day out. We also looked at landing pages. The research has that information in there, but for now, I'm just going to focus on the email research. And this is really a result of the fact that when we ask people what is going on and why they're making the decisions they are, it's really only 20% of the information that goes into that decision that they're aware of. And the other 80% they're not aware of, a little bit like an iceberg, you might say. And so this gives us a huge amount of weight to the emotions and memories and motivations that go into that decision, which the person isn't able to tell us about. And that's where neuromarketing has emerged, because we're now able to start to look at that 80%. And, this starts to give us answers to some of the questions like the old Coke and Pepsi challenge. People couldn't understand why it is that people in blind taste tests preferred Pepsi, yet they continue to go out and buy Coca-Cola. And yet when you look at what's going on in the 80%, you start to get an understanding of how those decisions come about. And these can have a major impact. If we look back a few years ago, Google did some research where they actually changed the colour of their blue. Not just the blue in their logo, but the blue hyperlink on the Google search. And they've said by changing it, they created a 200 million annual increase in their advertising revenue. And just by changing the shade of blue. So these changes and these things that go on in our minds that we can look at are incredibly powerful, and small changes can have big suggestions. So it got us thinking about it. What would we actually learn if we could look inside the brain of somebody as they were receiving emails? So we decided that we're going to carry out some research and actually explore that in more detail. The first thing we needed was a methodology. So we needed to make sure that we were carrying out the research and it was going to be effective. And in order to do that, we wanted to make sure that what we were actually measuring the response to the layout and not the response to the content. So we had to make sure that across all the different versions we used, the content would be exactly the same. We also wanted to find the content that we thought would be equally exciting for everybody. So if we talk about artificial intelligence, maybe some people would be more interested in that than other people. So we came across the idea of making sure we had content which was equally exciting for everybody. And the subject we chose, drumroll, was GDPR. So perhaps we mean equally not exciting to anybody, but at least we had a level playing field for everybody. Then we needed to make sure that we changed the order of the stuff so that people saw the email formats at different times, at different stages, because the brain very quickly gets tired or bored and will switch off if it sees the same information presented a lot of times. So we needed to shift the order about so not everybody would see that and so it wouldn't start to affect their results. So we decided to carry out a survey alongside it, so we could see the sort of conventional, market research that people would carry out, and we'd ask them questions about, which one they remembered and which one they liked the best, and also which one they disliked. And we also wanted to make sure we're really using the appropriate technology to enable us to look into people's brains and get the answers we wanted. So the technology was selected as something called electroencephalography. Try pronouncing that one. Or EEG, which in theory is the easier one to pronounce. So electroencephalography or EEG. That's a tool that psychologists like Katie use a lot in neuromarketing because it measures the electrical impulses inside your brain. You might be familiar with it. You might have seen one of these. They look like a swimming hat with a lot of wires out of it. However, due to technology nowadays, we've actually got versions we can use remotely. So we've got portable headsets we use, like you can see James showing off here, which are much more accessible and they're easier for us to put on. And it meant we were just asking people to step away from their desk for 20 minutes rather than coming to a laboratory and taking the whole day out. So it was much easier for us to carry out the research. Nothing like as interrupting as the other equipment is. So when you look at it and the readouts of what's happening inside the brain, you can see on the screen, you can see there's a sample readout, and you can see there's about 14 different lines on there of the electrical impulses which are being recorded. Each of those correspond to a sensor on the headset and have a particular place on the skull where they have been positioned. And they will read the electrical impulses underneath the skull, which is the way the brain communicates. So each of these has given us an indication of what is happening in that particular part of the brain. So the codes down the left-hand side tell us which of the senses it is, and from that you can start to piece together a sense of what's going on in that region of the brain. However, what we wanted to do was make sure that we were easily able to tell which particular layout of the email at that time were receiving the particular responses in the brain. So we were able to put in some vertical markers into the readings, which then gave us a very quick way of being able to record when people move from one email format to the next. And as you can see quite quickly here, that you start to get a very different response from each. So you can see the vertical markers and you can see the peaks and troughs in between those vertical markers. As I said, now the 14 different sensors, and there are a few sensors actually measured in isolation that give us information that's useful in isolation about what's going on. So what we then had to do is we use algorithms to give us some meaningful output, something more meaningful. And so what that means is we were actually measuring against 6 key metrics, and these metrics are things like engagement. So how engaged were the people when they saw the email? Was it something they were enjoying? Were they interested in it? Were they not interested? Did they dislike it? Did they like it? What was their focus? Did they have to concentrate? Was it hard? Were they drawn in? Was their focus divided? Were they excited? Were they stimulated? How easy was it for them to access the information they were looking at? Were they comfortable, and was it easy, or was it quite challenging? And the final metric we were looking at was relaxation, and that's the measure of how quickly they're able to recover from what they were seeing. So another way of saying that was how easily they were able to forget and move on from what they saw. So they were the 6 key metrics, and they were over these 2 mediums of email and landing pages. And interestingly, I just thought I'd give you some numbers. So in terms of the numbers, we did the research with 19 different web pages, but 9 different email formats. We conducted the research over 10 days, 14 different companies around the UK, and we went and we did it with 87 different people who let us do the research on them. Which was fantastic, and that gave us a massive 701,000 metrics that we could analyse and see what's going on inside the brains, and that's what I'm going to share with you now. But first of all, before I do that, I thought I'd let you know the layouts that we looked at. So we were looking with Outlook versus design, so pyramid, zigzag versus Outlook. We wanted to see whether having an optimized preview header performed better than a default preview header, whether a GIF versus a static image, and we'd looked at short and long email length. And these are just some examples. So you can see here, you've got the default preview header versus the optimized. The default preview header takes it from the first line of the plain text. So, it could be www.http blah, 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 blah. Or it could be, hi Simon, or we can optimize it. GIF versus static. Obviously, it's just an image. You can't see the GIF moving, but that green one would have been moving around. Then we're moving on to pyramid, zigzag, and Outlook style. So the actual layout of an email. Pyramid being image funneled down to a call to action, zigzag being text, image, text, and Outlook. We all know what an Outlook style email is. And then we also looked at long versus short. So I thought I'd do a few quick results here. So if we look at just the survey results, one of the things that people said that they call most is the GIF image. Now, one thing to mention here, there's quite a difference between the research and real life. So we already loaded the images into the emails on the laptop. We created fake inboxes. People would be able to move between them. So it was quite authentic. However, the GIF and the images were already preloaded. So that means when people opened the email, the GIF was there. Now in B2B environment, in Outlook, when you send emails to people who are using Outlook, that GIF probably wouldn't be downloaded. The images wouldn't be downloaded. They'd be blocked by default. So they would have to actively download them. So although we got 37% of people recalling that in a real world situation, they may not have done because they would have to download the image. The second one that people recalled was the zigzag, text, image, and it performed well. So again, this was what people remembered, but again, a huge drop compared to the 37%. And then in third place was Outlook. And despite all the different designs trialed, Outlook was the one people recalled. And when it came to it, it was also the one which actually gave us the highest levels of engagement and interest. So not just from a survey, but from the brain, we've got the highest level of engagement, interest, focus, and excitement. So that standard Outlook format, which people really engage with more than any other, is Outlook. So I'm afraid if any of you spend a long time working on design, might be a surprise to you to see, but people are comfortable and they resonate with the standard Outlook format. And you can see here just the general results that we have. Outlook on top versus pyramid, zigzag, and so forth. But I thought I'd break it down, so it was broke down into overall, and you can have a look at these. You'll get a copy of the slides. But if we look at gender, Outlook comes up, whether it's male or female. If we look at function, whether it's, marketing or non-marketing, Outlook was still there. You get some variances, but Outlook is still the main one over those metrics of engagement, excitement, stress, relaxation, interest, focus, and count. Seniority was an interesting one. So directors, managers, and execs, you could say Outlook, it was only the interns that messed things up, which was interesting. So the interns and Outlooks, maybe they're not conditioned to it. We'll come on that in a second. But even from the real life testing, I thought I'd share this example. You've got Outlook versus, in this case, a pyramid, and you've got a 100% click-through rate increase compared to the Outlook style one. So I said I'd leave you with the best ever layout from the brain testing and our split testing that we've been doing. So over sender alias, we were testing joke names, but make sure it comes from a person's name. If you can do a joke name, we were doing like Danger Mouse. Subject lines, make sure you got emojis are good, personalized, try a bit of reverse psychology. We were testing squared brackets. Design is Outlook style, no buttons, blue underline link, Google Blue, and call to action in the first sentence. And if you have to, zigzag or pyramid if you want images in there. I just thought I'd touch upon a few things that we're doing with regards to AI and click-through rates and being able to predict your click-through rate before it goes, and giving you some suggestions of, saying that your audience, you're writing for a reading age of a 4-year-old, but your content is actually at an a grade 11 reading age. Using the Flesch Kincaid, we can say actually you should increase the links or decrease the images, add more text or lower the subject line. And what I mean by that is, you can see here the one in bold is using AI and the others were not using AI. And what you can see, if we look at it, the same amount of sends roughly, the content might change, but the AI actually got us a 50% increase in clicks when we implemented the suggestions over the ones without AI. So you could say it's kind of 1-0 to the machine. And just a couple of other things that I just wanted to bring to your attention when we did it. When people were wearing the headsets, they were wearing it throughout the whole research, and we got them to do the surveys. And what we can see is that surveys are stressful. Although people, as marketers, we like getting surveys, people don't like doing surveys. Broken links in emails or even on web pages are really stressful. And what we notice is that stress carries through. So if you stress me out to start with, I will bring that through in my opinion of the brand of the situation. It's hard to get my stress levels back down when we go through it. So that what they say, that first impression can be important and is important. And we also know we did a look at pop-ups as well, which was really useful because pop-ups are a great way of disrupting that flow. So exit intent and so forth. It's a great way of retraining someone's focus. But again, in the big report, you can have a look at it and have a better read. And just before I finish, I thought I'd show you the impact of social media. So this is when we were asking if we can take photos of people to put on social, and people were like, yes, yeah, we will. But you can see here that the graph is all over the place. So although they're saying yes, their brain is like, oh my God, a photo. And it's the same with coffee. So this is a bit of people having a bit of coffee. And you can see when they've had a sip of coffee, the brain's like, ooh, ooh, an injection of stimulus. So it's just interesting what's going on in the brain, that 20-80% scenario that I talked about. And just to finish off, the conclusion is, when we carry out research using tools like this, there's information we can get from the outset just by looking at people. You've got the pictures here of all those different emotions that we've talked about, and, asking them conventional survey responses. And you can get lots of examples. We've got everything from frustration to boredom, excitement to surprise and interest. But actually, this only tells us part of the picture. And carrying out the research we did, we managed to do is take a really good look inside the head of our customers and start to see what goes into the buying decisions they make. And it gives us a whole new way to see what is going on and the processing materials that are being presented to them and how they're processing it. I hope that's given you some really useful stuff. Thank you very much. And any questions, I'd love to answer. Thank you very much. Goodbye.